and she wasn't ready to leave. Living in an old house had been new to her. She had begun her life on a neat, modern housing estate in a suburb of Cork City. Her parents had christened her Carol. "Were you a Christmas baby?" people asked politely. "No," she would reply, vaguely aware that she should have some sort of follow-up, an alternative explanation, but she never did. When she was 10, Brian and Linda, her older brother and sister, along with herself, had been put in the back seat of the car and driven away from the city. Their new home was an ultra-modern bungalow on the coast, west of Ballytour. This was their reward. "Hard work, kids," their father had beamed at them from the driver's seat. "This is what hard work looks like." He lunged across the car to give his wife an awkward kiss. She flushed, her eyes darting to the children in the back. Carol knew, as much as a child could, that her father's business was doing well. Her mother regularly reminded the children of how busy Daddy was and how much he'd like to be at home with them all, but he had to work. The small chain of cafes he owned in Cork had expanded into train stations, then into Dublin, and finally the airports. Crotty's cafes became well known, affectionately called Grotties. Carol had spent her school years being referred to as Grotty Crotty, even by her friends. Later, as a student, her home had been a small modern flat in Dublin. Her father had bought it as an investment. She was reminded many times, particularly in the presence of Linda and Brian, that she was not to imagine the apartment belonged to her. "I know, Dad," she would sigh. "We all know. We get it." "Just to be clear," her father would mutter. What went unspoken was that Carol was indeed his favourite. Neither Linda nor Brian had gone on to university, and the fact that his youngest had made her a star in his eyes. But he hadn't bought her a flat. It was very important that everything was fair when it came to money. In his will, everything would be split 3 ways. It was just love she had got more of. When Carol began teaching English, she had shared an apartment with 2 nurses. On the north side of the town, it wore its newness as a badge of honour. Brightly lit corridors, donkey brown carpet tiles. The street door had a security buzzer and a little camera. Carol's father had liked that. The 2 nurses shared 1 bedroom, while Carol had the other. The 3 of them had got on well enough, until they discovered that she was the daughter of the Crotty who owned all the Grotties. It was never the same after that. Carol had fallen in love. Alex taught geography and coached various sports teams. He wore tracksuits on and off the pitch and had a dark, neatly clippered beard. He was not the sort of man Carol would have ever expected to ask a bookish woman like her out on a date. That wasn't to say she hadn't found him attractive. On the contrary, her eyes were often drawn to him in the school staff room. From behind a pile of uncorrected homework, she had observed him flirt and laugh with the blonde history teacher. Carol had seen how the older female students would hang around the door of his classroom, trying to think of questions to ask him about oxbow lakes or glaciers, in the hope that he would notice them. Then one evening, in the staff car park, he had casually called across to her an invitation to go out. His tone had been so familiar and unforced, it seemed to suggest that this wouldn't be their first date. Carol had that feeling she got when she was watching a series on television and realised that she must have missed an episode because the story had moved forward in unexplained ways. He had taken Carol to dinner, ordered wine without embarrassment, told her she looked beautiful. Her parents liked him. What more could she ask for? She married him. They had bought a townhouse off-plan when they became engaged. The large signs surrounding the development proudly declared that the homes were architect-designed, as if most buildings were just constructed by builders using luck and a spirit level. "Don't tell your brother and sister," her father had cautioned when he handed over the cheque to help with the deposit. They had been happy, really happy. All the furniture had been chosen and bought without arguments. Quite often when Carol was cleaning or carrying in groceries, she would stop and admire what they had made. It was a proper home. They would laugh, swapping tales about students or mocking the television shows they were watching, while they curled into each other on the sofa they had found together. Perfect, they had said, almost in unison, when they'd spotted it in Casey's up in Cork. Carol became pregnant. A cot to choose, the small back bedroom to decorate. They had a son, Craig. He